Here with Attorney General from New York, Eric Schneiderman, just named by President Barack Obama to the joint investigation of housing fraud. And I wanted to ask you about this. When your name was announced at the State of the Union, it made a lot of news in the circle of people that follow this, like I was saying. And the reason is this. There had been these 50 investigations initiated by every Attorney General. There was a process by which a settlement was being negotiated. Tom Miller, who was the Attorney General from Iowa, was heading that up. And there was a lot of fear that that settlement was going to be way too lenient on the banks and release them essentially from accountability, legally release them. And there were attorneys general, yourself was one of them, Beau Biden, who's had a guest on the program, Kamala Harris from California, who basically objected and said, no, we want to make sure that there is accountability. So when your name came up as the person that had this task force, there were two theories. One was that Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has won, and the other was Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has been co-opted by the White House. So I want to give you an opportunity to say which of those two it is.
I don't. None of the above. I mean, I don't. This is not an example of me winning, but you did frame up the issue when I got elected. The multi-state negotiations which were going on, which have to do again with post-crash misconduct. This has to do with abuses in the foreclosure process, not with what my working group is investigating, which is the conduct that blew up the economy in the first place. And there was a negotiation underway, and when I first came in, the banks understand. And look, I spent 15 years in a corporate law firm. I used to represent Merrill Lynch and other financial institutions. I'm familiar with this area, and I'm familiar with these guys. They wanted as broad a release as they could get. If I was representing them, I would too. They wanted a release from all their misconduct in return for settling claims. It really had to do with a relatively narrow set of issues: robo-signing, foreclosure abuse. It's good to have a servicing settlement. I've never objected to that. You want harder rules of the road going forward. You want principal reduction for homeowners. You want there was a lot of good stuff in that settlement. I drew a hard line, though, and said there's absolutely no way I'm going to join if you're going to give these guys a release from the other conduct that hasn't even been investigated yet, or the investigations are underway but haven't come to fruition. First rule of responsible prosecution: you don't release claims that haven't been investigated. So I drew a line on that, but it really wasn't about me winning.
Sure.
There was this incredible public outcry from activist groups like Move On and the coalition of housing activists, civil rights groups, progressive members of Congress, like our colleague here, and labor, organized labor, absolutely adamant that you do not release the claims for the conduct that blew up the economy. And so I'm very confident now that whatever releases might be granted in the servicing settlement that's being negotiated are not going to impede our investigation. We didn't all stand up there on Friday and say we're investigating all of the conduct that blew up the economy with the thought in mind that in a few weeks from now we're going to release all the claims we just said we're investigating. That's not happening. That is the president has been absolutely clear. We're going after the stuff that blew up the economy in our working group. We're going after the possibilities of tax fraud, insurance fraud, securities fraud. We're going to look at this stuff very carefully. We have the jurisdiction, we have the resources, we have the will. And then the servicing settlement is designed to deal with the day-to-day problems people are facing with foreclosure abuse. And I know Congressman Cohen has been pushing for provisions to mandate mediation between lenders and homeowners. That sort of stuff has to take place, but that's really very separate from the issues we're looking at.
In terms of the resources, our staff was doing some research, and I was surprised to see on the FBI, we were going through the FBI's website, during the savings and loan investigation, the FBI had 1,000 members of the FBI, 1,000 members of the FBI tasked to it. During the Enron investigation, which was just one company, 40 FBI investigators were tasked with that investigation. What kind of staff are you going to have? The initial reports I've seen have said 10 FBI agents, but I'm imagining that's not the whole kit and caboodle. But when you say resources, what kind of scale are we talking about? Because as you've noted, this is very complex stuff. These are presumably, if there are going to be civil or criminal cases brought, these are very, very difficult cases to bring. There's a massive paper trail, a tremendous amount of technical legal knowledge that has to be marshaled, tons of documents to go through. What kind of scale of resources are you really going to have?
We're going to have, I don't know exactly, but I'm sure there'll be hundreds of people working on it. It's important to understand that the joint investigation is not structured to stop any of us from bringing our own cases. Right. My office will be bringing cases in the course of the next few weeks that are coordinated with our colleagues, but the people in my office who have been working on this for the last 8 months aren't stopping work just because we've now got a joint investigation. Attorney General Holder had an initial commitment that he announced to the core of the working group of 55 people, agents and lawyers, and we're going to be adding to that. That's just from the Civil Division of the Justice Department. We also have folks from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We have people from U.S. attorneys' offices. U.S. Attorney Walsh from Colorado is another one of the co-chairs to help coordinate the activities of the U.S. attorneys' offices. So we're going to have hundreds of people working on this, but more importantly, the overlay of jurisdiction of these different entities is what guarantees our ability to inquire into everything. Every mortgage-backed security issued in the last decade was either a New York trust or a Delaware trust. You mentioned Attorney General Bodden. He and I started collaborating when we realized that we had jurisdiction over these trusts and that the investor claims that have to be resolved at some point, the people who bought these mortgage-backed securities only to see them collapse, they have to come through New York and Delaware to do it. Our jurisdiction, Justice, the SEC, the IRS, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, huge addition to the team. Look at the entities that are in this working group and the lawyers who are looking at this now, and particularly my good friends and colleagues who represent financial services institutions. They understand the implications of this combination of resources and forces.
More with Attorney General Eric Schneiderman and my guests here when we come back after this.